Pamela Poole, and I live an amazing life as an artist and an author. Today's amazing because I am finally getting to announce that I finished my next book series. It's a novella collection, so these aren't long book length stories. These are novellas. 3 of them make one thick novel, and I have collected it in one collection edition, a hardback edition. It's also available on digital as well, but there won't be a paperback in that. The 3 novella stories are called the Strange Sands Suspense series, and there is book 1, 2, and 3 in the first collection. They are centered here in the Lowcountry where I live in the Hilton Head area. The first one is in Hilton Head. It's the Old Cedar Chest. The second one is in Savannah, Georgia. That is the Hidden Hallway. And the third one is in Charleston. It's the Freedom Staircase. And so each story has a basic town or city that it happens in, but the characters are moving, they're centered in one place here in Bluffton, South Carolina, close to Hilton Head. And the main character's home is in Charleston, but she has moved to Bluffton for the summer for a very specific reason. And I'll get ready to read you the back cover of that first book so that you'll know. If you've ever had one of those creepy feelings like something is just not right about a place, or you've been somewhere that you just suddenly you felt overwhelmed that something bad might happen, and maybe it did. Or if you've talked to people who have had some of these really unusual encounters that can't be explained, then you'll definitely want to check out this series, because I used real interviews with friends and from missionary stories from the mission field about unusual, unexplainable, and ordinary natural terms, things that happened to them in given situations where they needed the Lord's help and called on His name, and something did come through to happen. And so each book has at least one element of an interview that I did with a friend or that I encountered myself, to make it more authentic. These are not just things I totally randomly chose to put in a book out of my imagination. There's plenty of my imagination in writing the story and in visualizing things where I write descriptions and everything. But a lot of the supernatural elements that are going to be in the suspense stories are from real life. And I hope that will help you enjoy them even more when you think about it. I did reach back into history a little bit to come up with a premise for this series. And I'm going to read you that premise for the entire series before I show you each individual book. So here it goes. I'm going to read this from my laptop so that I don't have to look down or away from you. I try to keep my face to you, and I'll try to hold the books up as I read some of this. Let's see if I've got them in the right order here. Okay, this is a synopsis of the Strange Sands series collection, and this is books 1 through 3. I'll be taking a break, and then after the holidays, I will start writing on books 4 through 6. But here's the first collection, and if you don't want the 3 novellas, they're short, that altogether they would make probably a thick novel, and so I did collect them in a hardback edition that you can order. But some people just like to try out one. It's easy, it's light to take somewhere, and so they are all coming out. They are out in print as well. As you can see, I'm filling orders that I had since releasing it a couple of weeks ago. So here's the description for the Strange Sands Suspense Series Collection 1 through 3. Inspirational suspense, supernatural destiny, and lowcountry ambiance. Mercedes Annalee Ellison plans to escape the legacy of her family. Rumors are that their unusual experiences fuel the imaginations of horror writers in England in the 1800s. Whether those rumors are true, it's a well-documented fact that every generation in the Ellison family encounters things that defy a satisfying explanation. Mercedes chooses what she sees as a boring career as an independent architectural historian on her home turf in the Lowcountry of South Carolina. She expects to spend most of her days researching archives of old documents and filling out mind-numbing paperwork to send through miles of red tape. She dates a young man with what she thinks is a dull future as an attorney. There should be no room in her life for those strange sands that slip relentlessly through the hourglass of time in her family. But the stunning discovery of a journal and a deed in a hidden panel of an old cedar chest forces Mercedes to face an arch enemy with a vendetta against the Ellisons from over 120 years earlier. That would be the year 1900, and the prologue will get you all started with that in the first book. And her job plunges her into tales of passion and revenge, cold case crimes, unsolved mystery, and a hunt for long-lost treasure. Doesn't sound like a boring career after all, does it? The vendetta has come full circle. As a born-again Christian, Mercedes knows in her head that she lives in a spiritual realm. Now she must decide in her heart whether she will accept her destiny as both a believer and an Ellison when forced to confront the supernatural in a deadly showdown. That showdown wraps up in this book. However, each story is complete in and of itself. So if you just start with the first one to try, you still get a complete story, but you don't get the full background vendetta coming to a close until you get to this story, The Freedom Staircase. So let me tell you a little bit about each of those books. The Old Cedar Chest actually was inspired by an old cedar chest. And the reason I did this video here in my studio is that behind me is an old cedar chest that inspired this. I know you can't see it in the video, and I don't want to move the camera around and get shaky cam, but there's a very interesting ornate finish on the front, a lock set there. This is from like the 1920s, an old cedar chest that I found in a upcycle shop. And I store art supplies in it, but I couldn't resist getting it. It's huge for a hope chest. And on the inside is a nameplate engraved from a mother to her daughter. And it just inspired me that these people had lives. These people lived, probably are passed away at this point, but things happened to them just like they happened to me and you. They had good in their lives, they had bad in their lives. They had challenges that we could learn from. And it just intrigued me that this belonged to a real young woman given to her out of love by her mother. And she stored things as a hope chest that she hoped would happen in her life. Things for a good life. I'm sure she was preparing for a beautiful future, one that she probably dreamed of as a girl. And that chest just inspired me. And so that is where we get the Old Cedar Chest, and I just named it for what it was. The illustration that I used on this book is an illustration I found online, actually, of more like a wardrobe. But the way that it had this chest sort of look, if I cropped it out, it still made, I thought, a good sort of a vintage feel look for an old cedar chest. And on each of these covers, I used the finish is like a old building, some sort of rustic look in these buildings. Some are boards, some are like stucco walls. This one would be a rough background wall. I think it actually had boards paneling, probably some type of shiplap or something like that. And then on the back of each book, it tells more about the story, that it is inspirational suspense. So you don't get it, you're not looking for something out there with all the bad language and the lewd situations. This is clean Christian stuff, but that doesn't mean it's lightweight. And then I liked this little vintage look to a Polaroid camera picture for my author picture on the back, instead of one with the traditional look. So the whole thing to me feels sort of vintage. I like to read vintage, like 50s, 60s mystery novels, most of them British, but I liked this idea of something simple and rustic to support that. As you'll see at the top here is Hilton Head. At the top of each novel, you'll see that there's a location given on each of them. And I'll read you, I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this one, but I'm going to read you a little bit about the first book, the Old Cedar Chest. An antique cedar hope chest, a hidden panel, a century-spanning vendetta. Mercedes Annalee Ellison held her great-great-grand-aunt's fragile journal and a tattered manila envelope, puzzling about whether these items would change her life. Her intuition screamed that they would, and the way they had come to her in her possession would make any skeptic pause. She wanted to bolt, to flee what loomed ahead. Distractions were not welcome in her life right now. She was an architectural historian with 3 great jobs lined up for the summer, and a problem with her boyfriend. When she finds herself entangled in a diabolical vendetta against her family over disputed land in England, Mercedes desperately searches for answers about why she is a target for something that happened back in the year 1900. A man murdered her ancestor, Claire Ellison, one night in an eerie storm, and only a miracle will save Mercedes from the same fate. Can she survive and accept her destiny as part of the legendary Ellison family? You have to read to find out. All right, let's move to book number 2. The Hidden Hallway. This one was a lot of fun because I got to delve into the Civil War era type things. I like American history. Being an American, I guess that's okay. And as you can see, the location is in Savannah. I like the gate look on here, and I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes, why I chose the gate. All right, so this is the look of the front. This is the look of the back. Same vintage thing going on, and the kind of weathered, beat up, needs restoration sort of feel for the background. An antebellum house, a hidden hallway, a tale of passion and revenge. As an architectural historian, Mercedes Ellison is hired by Tammy and Clayton Popplewell to guide them as they register and renovate an antebellum house in the beautiful southern city of Savannah. And it is beautiful. If you've never been there, you should go. But when she knows this is not the boring job she hoped for, and when she, okay, let's start over. But she knows this isn't the boring job she hoped for when she arrives to find the local police there the first day. As Mercedes investigates the history of the property and the neighbors seek her out with a strange Civil War tale of passion and revenge, she works to uncover a terrifying darkness and help the Popplewell couple make the house into the inn where they hope to share light before the Popplewells give in and she loses the job. So the Popplewells are ready to give up on this house, and she is inspired by some neighbors, a very special neighbor named Granny, and she is going to try to discover what it is about this house that is keeping the Popplewells from being happy there. That's book 2. Let's move on to book 3. Oh man, I had so much fun with this one, and I'm going to tell you another reason why when I'm finished. This is a real place that I've been to, and I used it for inspiration. This is Strange Sand Suspense number 3. It is Charleston. As you can see, all these books are kind of thin. They're novellas. And it's called The Freedom Staircase. And this is another line drawing staircase. An enduring Lowcountry plantation, a legendary patriot refuge, a last stand for freedom. It thrilled Mercedes Ellison to be chosen to work as an architectural historian for Majestic Oaks, a plantation that endured and survived wars on American soil. The stately Georgian mansion features the Freedom Staircase, where legendary patriots stopped for refuge in their roles with the Continental Army in the American Revolution. Her client needs help to keep the plantation he inherited, which is steeped in the history of the Lowcountry of South Carolina, home of the Swamp Fox and 4 signers of the Declaration of Independence. There are also some unsolved mysteries on the property. Bringing them to light will help her client, and she finds clues in a secret passage used by the Patriots. But then her arch enemy dies in jail, and his son hunts her down. Can she make a last stand for freedom from the vengeful vendetta that began with the murder of her ancestor on a stormy night so long ago in England? All right, the back of this one still looks like the vintage look. And now I want to explain to you more about where these cover ideas came from. I told you about the cedar chest. It's behind me. The one for the the gates that you're seeing here, the wrought iron for the one in Savannah, I don't have that painting. It's with a collector, but it's actually a house I've seen. I visited this place, took pictures of it, did a painting because I was so inspired by this house, and the painting is in the book. Let's see if I can find the print version is going to have it in black and white, so I can't really. If I had the Kindle version up, I could show you full color. But this is actually the look of the house, and as you can see, there really is wrought iron on it. And the wrought iron just enchanted me. I couldn't get past the fact that I had to paint this house, and I did. And it was in an autumn time, so there were leaves on the ground, and it's called Savannah Autumn. If you want to look it up on my website, my artist website, PamelaPoole.com, look under Savannah, the collection Savannah, and you'll see it right there. But I did put the picture of that painting in here, and that's what inspired this wrought iron. There is a gate involved in this house's decor. Now, another painting in the Savannah story is on this side of me, and it is Savannah Jazz. And this is someone, actually, I had a friend contact me and let me know that they know the gentleman who is playing this music for us. Once when my husband and I visited Savannah for a riverfront dinner meal and walk, he was playing, and so that also turns up in this book, and that painting in black and white is in this book. I believe the color version is in the Kindle books. So these were inspired by real things, all these books. The Freedom Staircase. I can't say that a specific staircase is one that inspired this. And this line drawing that's used on here is not mine. It's not one that inspired me from any particular place. However, the whole novel, the plantation in this novel, is inspired by a real place. And that is Hampton Plantation. For those of you who live in Charleston, you may have been there before. This is the look of the front of the house. The first poet laureate of South Carolina was a descendant of the builders of this plantation from the early 1700s. And this is what the front of it looked. It's a Georgian mansion. And George Washington visited there. And so when George Washington advised the owners, yes, it was okay to let the tree grow that was out from this porch and let it grow in front of the house, it's called the Washington Oak, and it is still alive. And I did a painting of it. My family and I went for, I like experiences for Mother's Day, so I asked to go to this plantation. And I took a photo of this Washington Oak, and I did a painting of it in a workshop. I was in a art workshop with famous artist Albert Handel. If you've never seen his work, that is worth looking up online. And this was a workshop painting from that. Well, I started it there. I don't think I finished it. I may have. It's been several years, but I think I finished it more when I got home. And so that painting does show up inside this book. But this is such a first-hand account, just descriptions of the land. There are photographs of the inside of the house, stories about things that happened there, and then there is the owner that wrote this book. And it's just a fascinating book. If you ever want to have an interesting look at an old plantation house, and it might change some of your preconceived ideas about plantation living, I would definitely recommend this book. And it is so inspiring. If nothing else, just sit down and read it, and you will visualize everything. He is so descriptive about the beautiful country around that. And this isn't about the plantation, but just another aside. If you're ever looking for a gift book, this is hardcover. This is called Life's Extras. It's by the same author, and it just has some wonderful little things to think about what's important in life. So that's the kind of man that he was. And so in the books, in each of these books, at the back, I have a list of resources. And this will give you links to places like Hampton Plantation and other source material from where I got some of my ideas, architecture in Savannah, things like that. There's also in each book, if you're in a book club, there is also a section for discussion topics. And that might help you to get started with some different, if you're reading and you're like, what do we say about this part? Well, you don't have to worry about that. Those discussion topics are already in there for you, and your book club can work with those. Behind me is a painting called, well, let's see if I can move to the side here. It's a painting called Egrets on the Ashley, and it comes from Charlestown. It's a place I was actually at. I took the photo that day, and then I made a painting of it. This is what the river might have looked like in the Freedom Staircase on Hampton Plantation. This is also in Charleston, so it wouldn't be a stretch to think that it could look like that. And I also have this little sign out for a reason, and that is that although these stories are, I consider them to be suspense and supernatural suspense even, I always include an element of relational material, because I think we're so dysfunctional as a society now in modern times. We have forgotten what it's like what real love is. And when I write my books, I try to model biblical relationships, not what you see on TV or a magazine or following your favorite pop or movie star, but real relationships that are meaningful and that last a lifetime. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for all the support and the comments I get, and contacts through my website, and for your stories, because you make my stories better when you tell me about your stories. Don't be surprised if you read one of my books and you're like, oh, that was something I told her. That was one of my stories as well. And I'm glad this series took a couple of years longer than I meant for it to, because in the meantime, as the Lord always does, He enriches our lives with things that happen that make us a better person, a wiser person, and a more colorful person with more stories. And those definitely helped my stories. And that's all I have today. I took longer than you probably hoped for a video, but with 3 books coming out, I just had to get it all in. So I hope that you will go on, if you want more detail or you want to read those descriptions for yourself, The books are for sale at all the online bookstores, but you can also just go to one place, southernskypublishing.com, and there on the front page, it will announce my new release, and it will give a description of the series and then a description of each book. And there's also a free bookmark there that you can download that has the series cover on it of all 3 books, not just each individual book, but the collection that's going to be a hardback. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you have a wonderful, blessed day, living life in the supernatural, spiritual realm and being peculiar people that the Lord has made. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye-bye.